Let me tell you something that will change your life if you hear it. Wealth isn't something you chase. It's something you attract by becoming the kind of person who can handle it. And thousands of years ago, there was a man who understood this better than anyone, Solomon. This man wasn't just rich, he was the richest of his time. But here's the real secret: he didn't ask for money, he asked for wisdom. And when wisdom came, so did wealth. That's principle number one: wisdom before wealth. Some of you are praying for more money, but God is waiting for you to ask for the understanding to multiply the money you already have. Money without wisdom is like water in your hands. It slips away. Principle number two: seek understanding, not just money. Money is a result, not a cause. If you understand the cause, you'll produce the result over and over again. Some people want $1 million, but they don't understand how to produce 100 $. And if you can't multiply what's in your hand, you'll never multiply what's in your account. Solomon understood systems, relationships, and principles. That's why wealth chased him. Principle number three: value creation over possession. Solomon built wealth by creating value. He traded, built alliances, developed infrastructure. He wasn't hoarding gold. He was multiplying influence and resources. Too many people are trying to get money without creating anything the world actually needs. Wealth flows to the problem solver. Principle number four: diligence over distraction. Solomon said, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. That's not just poetry, that's profit strategy. Consistency beats intensity when intensity isn't sustainable. A man or woman who works with diligence will out-earn and outlast the one who only works when they feel inspired. Principle number five: generosity as a growth strategy. Solomon gave, and gave big. He understood that giving isn't subtraction, it's multiplication in disguise. When you release resources, you open your hands for more. When you cling to what you have, you close the very channel God uses to bring increase. The world says keep it, but the kingdom says sow it. And principle number six: honor is the foundation of prosperity. Honor God, honor people, honor principles. You can't break divine laws and expect divine blessings. Solomon's wealth wasn't built on shortcuts. It was built on honor, integrity, and alignment with God's order. When you walk in honor, you attract opportunities that money can't buy. So if you want wealth that lasts, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. The blueprint was written thousands of years ago. Start with wisdom, build on understanding, create value, work diligently, give generously, and walk in honor, and watch how wealth will stop running from you and start running toward you. Wisdom is the foundation of wealth, because without wisdom, wealth will always slip through your fingers. Think about it. How many people win the lottery or come into a sudden inheritance only to be broke within a few years? The problem is never the amount of money, it's the capacity of the person holding it. If your capacity to handle resources is small, then even a large amount will eventually shrink down to match your capacity. Solomon understood this principle deeply. When given the chance to ask God for anything, he didn't ask for riches, power, or the defeat of his enemies. He asked for wisdom to govern well, and that request positioned him for a level of wealth and influence that exceeded anything his generation had ever seen. He understood that wisdom is the seed and wealth is the harvest. The seed comes first. The mistake most people make is they reverse the order. They think, if I just had more money, all my problems would go away. But more money without more wisdom just magnifies the problems. If you don't know how to manage $1,000, you won't magically know how to manage 100,000. The same habits that cause loss at the small level will simply operate on a larger scale. That's why wisdom before wealth is non-negotiable. Wisdom teaches you how to turn little into much, how to keep what you've earned, how to invest in things that multiply, and how to avoid decisions that destroy. Wisdom is not just knowledge. Knowledge is knowing facts. Wisdom is knowing what to do with those facts. You can read 100 books on business and still fail if you lack the wisdom to apply the right principle at the right time. Wisdom takes understanding and translates it into action that produces results. Solomon's wisdom wasn't just about being smart, it was about discernment. He could see what others couldn't see, hear what others ignored, and anticipate the outcome before others even start. That's why people traveled from around the world just to hear his counsel. They understood that one word of wisdom could be worth more than a lifetime of labor without it. One of the most dangerous mindsets is believing that money will solve a lack of wisdom. Money doesn't solve problems, it amplifies them. If you have a bad spending habit, more money will make you spend more recklessly. If you make poor investment choices, more money will only give you the means to make bigger bad investments. That's why you see athletes, celebrities, and entrepreneurs rise to the top financially only to crash hard. It's not because they didn't make enough. It's because they didn't keep enough, and they didn't grow what they kept. That's a wisdom problem, not a money problem. Wisdom before wealth also protects you from the traps that come with success. The higher you go, the more temptation, flattery, and pressure you will face. Without wisdom, those things will take you down. Wisdom teaches you how to say no when the wrong opportunities come, how to maintain integrity when shortcuts are offered, and how to keep humility when your name is in lights. Wealth without wisdom often leads to arrogance. And arrogance is the fastest way to lose everything you've gained. The truth is, wisdom is a multiplier. When you get wisdom, you automatically increase your ability to generate wealth, manage it, and multiply it. That's why Solomon didn't have to chase money. Money came to him. People paid him in gold, silver, precious stones, livestock, and rare goods, all because they valued his insight. They understood that his wisdom could solve problems that money alone could not solve. If you position yourself as a person of wisdom, you'll never be without resources, because people will always pay for what truly solves their problems. The world often teaches the opposite. It says, chase the bag, grind until you get the money, and then figure it out later. But later is when most people lose what they worked so hard for. Solomon flipped that script. He pursued wisdom first, and wealth became the byproduct. If you adopt that mindset, you'll start asking different questions. Instead of, how can I make more money? You'll ask, what wisdom do I need to earn, manage, and grow money consistently? That shift changes everything, because now you're focused on building the skill set and mindset that makes wealth inevitable. Wisdom is also the key to sustaining wealth across generations. You can give your children money, but if you don't give them wisdom, the money will disappear. You can build a business and hand it to your heirs, but without the wisdom to run it, it will crumble. Solomon knew this, which is why he spent as much time passing down proverbs and principles as he did building physical wealth. Money is a resource, but wisdom is the system that keeps the resource flowing. To get wisdom, you have to be willing to learn, to listen, and apply. Wisdom isn't automatic. It's cultivated. It comes from mentors, from study, from observing patterns, and from seeking divine guidance. It's a pursuit, not a gift that falls into your lap. And once you have it, it pays dividends for life. The beautiful thing about wisdom is that it compounds. The more you apply it, the more it grows and the more effective it becomes. Unlike money, which you can spend and lose, wisdom stays with you, and it keeps producing long after the initial lesson is learned. Understanding is the missing link between having information and producing transformation. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't understand how to apply it to your life and your circumstances, it will sit dormant like a seed that's never planted. Solomon understood that asking for wisdom was only the beginning. He knew that without understanding is like having a map without knowing where you are. Understanding is what allows you to take a principle and apply it to the exact situation you're in at the right time in the right way to produce the right result. That's why he didn't just collect facts. He sought to comprehend how things worked, why they worked, and how they could work for him and for the people he led. Most people make the mistake of thinking money is the goal, but money is simply a byproduct of solving problems. If you understand the problem at a deep enough level, you will also understand how to create solutions that people will gladly pay for. Without understanding, you end up copying someone else's formula without grasping the principle behind it. That's why so many people can try the same business model and yet get drastically different results. They have the same steps, but one is understanding and the other is just going through the motions. Understanding gives you the insight to adapt, to innovate, and to make principles fit your own path instead of blindly following someone else's. Solomon's understanding was so deep that leaders and rulers from other nations would travel to hear his judgments. They came not because he had a fancy title, but because they recognized he could see beyond the surface. When two women came before him, both claiming to be the mother of the same child, he didn't just hear their words, he discerned the truth hidden beneath them. That's the power of understanding. It allows you to look past appearances, past the noise, and into the root of the matter. And when you operate from that place, your decisions carry weight, your actions have precision, and your results are multiplied. Without understanding, you can have opportunities in your hand and still miss them. You can have resources, but not know how to put them to work. You can be in the right place at the right time and not even realize it. Understanding is what turns chance into choice. It gives you the ability to recognize what others overlook. It's why two people can look at the same situation. One sees an obstacle and walks away. The other sees an opportunity and builds a fortune. The difference isn't luck, it's understanding. This is why chasing money without understanding is dangerous. You can earn a quick profit without grasping the underlying mechanics, but when the market changes, the strategy that worked yesterday may fail tomorrow. If you don't understand why it worked in the first place, you won't know how to adjust. Solomon's wealth endured because he understood systems, trade systems, political systems, relational systems. He knew how to make deals that benefited multiple parties, how to manage resources so they replenished instead of depleted, and how to position himself so wealth flowed toward him instead of away from him. Understanding also gives you patience. When you truly understand how a thing works, you're not as easily swayed by emotion, trends, or panic. If you plant a seed, understanding tells you it needs time, water, and sunlight. Without understanding, you might dig it up after a week, wondering why it hasn't produced fruit yet. This is exactly how people treat investments, businesses, and skills. They quit too soon because they don't understand the process. Solomon knew that certain results take time, and because he understood the process, he was able to keep building even when there was no immediate return. Another aspect of understanding is knowing the difference between activity and productivity. Just because you're busy doesn't mean you're moving forward. Understanding teaches you to identify which actions actually produce results and which ones are just noise. This is why Solomon could accomplish more with fewer moves than others could with twice the effort. He wasn't interested in doing everything. He was focused on doing the right things. Understanding also protects you from deception. When you understand principles, you can spot lies and false promises quickly. You can see through scams, too good to be true offers, and empty opportunities. People without understanding are always at the mercy of someone who seems more knowledgeable. That's why so many people fall victim to get rich quick schemes. They understand their desire for money, but not the process of wealth creation. If you have understanding, you can filter out distractions and focus on what actually builds sustainable wealth. When you seek understanding, you stop comparing yourself to others. You realize that your journey is unique and that copying someone else's moves won't guarantee their results. Understanding lets you adapt timeless principles to your specific gifts, skills, and circumstances. This is why Solomon could build wealth in ways that were custom to his strengths. He didn't try to be like every other king. He leveraged what he understood about himself, his resources, and his opportunities to create something unprecedented. Understanding also increases your ability to teach and lead. When you truly understand something, you can break it down and communicate it clearly to others. That's why people came from far away to learn from Solomon. They didn't just want the answer, they wanted to understand the reasoning behind it so they could apply it themselves. When you become a person who can transfer understanding, you multiply your impact, and when your impact multiplies, your influence and wealth tend to follow. Value creation is the cornerstone of sustainable wealth. It's the ability to take what you have, your skills, knowledge, creativity, and resources, and turn it into something that benefits others so much that they are willing to exchange their money, time, and loyalty for it. Solomon didn't just accumulate wealth by chance. He understood how to create value that attracted resources from all over the world. His kingdom became a hub for trade, culture, and wisdom because he built things that solved problems, enhanced lives, and inspired loyalty. Gold, silver, spices, rare woods, and precious stones didn't flow into his treasury just because he had a crown on his head. They flowed because he created an ecosystem where value was constantly being produced and exchanged. The mistake most people make when they think about wealth is that they focus on possession rather than production. They think the goal is to get money, but the real goal is to become a producer of value. If you become a consistent source of value, money will always find you. This is why some people can lose everything and rebuild quickly. They've mastered value creation. They know how to take an idea and turn it into income. They know how to find a need and meet it better than anyone else. And because of that, they never stay down for long. Value creation is about understanding the needs, desires, and problems of people, and then delivering solutions in a way that others can't easily replace. Solomon's reign was filled with trade agreements, alliances, and innovations that made his kingdom indispensable to other nations. He created value through infrastructure, such as ports and roads, that made trade easier. He created value through culture, making Jerusalem a center of learning and wisdom. He even created value through relationships, building alliances that brought peace and prosperity. Every move he made increased the worth of what he had to offer, which in turn increased the wealth that flowed toward him. When you create value, you control the game. If your only strategy for wealth is to hold on to what you have, you'll eventually lose it to inflation, competition, or changing markets. But if you're constantly producing value, you can adapt and thrive no matter what happens. The world will always pay for something it needs, something it wants, or something it didn't know it wanted until you created it. That's why innovators, entrepreneurs, and problem solvers often end up wealthier than those who simply try to preserve what they have. Preservation without production is slow death. Another key to value creation is excellence. It's not enough to just provide something. You have to provide it in a way that makes you stand out. Solomon didn't offer average solutions. He offered exceptional ones. His temple wasn't just functional, it was magnificent. His court wasn't just efficient, it was extraordinary. When the Queen of Sheba visited, she was so impressed by the excellence of his operations, his people, and his environment that she gave lavish gifts without being asked. That's the power of creating such overwhelming value that people are compelled to reward you. Value creation also requires continuous improvement. What's valuable today may not be valuable tomorrow. Markets shift, needs change, and competitors arise. If you stop improving, your value begins to decline. Solomon's wisdom allowed him to stay ahead by anticipating change and evolving his offerings. In modern terms, this could mean upgrading your skills, innovating your products, improving your services, or finding more efficient ways to deliver them. The more you refine and enhance the value you create, the more you protect and grow your wealth. It's important to recognize that value is measured by the receiver, not the creator. You might think what you offer is worth a lot, but the market decides. This is why listening is crucial in value creation. Solomon's decisions were often based on understanding the needs of others, both his people and foreign allies. He didn't impose what he thought they should value. He provided what they already valued or could be taught to value. That's why his influence and wealth grew hand in hand. Value creation is also scalable. If you solve a problem for one person, you've helped one person. If you solve it for 1,000, you've multiplied your impact. If you build a system that solves it for millions, you've built an empire. Solomon's trade routes, building projects, and governance systems were all scalable forms of value creation. Once established, they continued to produce benefit without requiring his constant involvement in every detail. That's the difference between working for income and building wealth. Income stops when you stop working, but wealth continues to grow because the value you've created keeps working for you. The opposite of value creation is value extraction. Value extraction is taking from people without giving them something of equal or greater worth in return. It's short-term thinking, and it's why many people and even entire businesses collapse. They focus on what they can take rather than what they can give. Solomon's wealth endured during his lifetime because he prioritized value creation over extraction. His people prospered, his allies prospered, and as a result, he prospered. This principle remains true when you focus on creating genuine, lasting value for others. Your own prosperity becomes inevitable. Lastly, value creation requires vision. You have to be able to see opportunities where others see nothing. You have to imagine solutions that don't yet exist and believe they can be brought to life. Solomon could look at a situation and envision not just what it was, but what it could become with the right resources, effort, and wisdom applied. That kind of vision turns ideas into realities, realities into assets, and assets into wealth. And when you master value creation, you don't have to chase wealth. It will chase you because the world always moves toward the people who make it richer, better, and more abundant. Diligence is one of the most underestimated wealth building principles, yet it is one of the most consistent predictors of success. Diligence is not just hard work, it is disciplined, focused, and intentional work done over time. It is the refusal to be swayed by distractions, the commitment to finish what you start, and the willingness to keep showing up even when the excitement is gone. Solomon understood this when he said, "The hand of the diligent will rule, but the slothful will be put to forced labor." He knew that in any field, whether it's business, leadership, farming, or finance, those who consistently and carefully apply themselves eventually rise above those who work in fits and starts. The challenge most people face isn't a lack of ability, but a lack of focus. They start one thing, get bored or discouraged, and then jump to something else, never staying with anything long enough to see results. Diligence requires a level of commitment that says, "I will work this process until the process works for me." Solomon's wealth didn't appear overnight. It was the product of systems, relationships, and ventures that were built and maintained with consistent effort. His trade agreements had to be managed, his building projects had to be overseen, and his governance had to be enforced. None of that happened by accident. It was diligence in action. Diligence is also about precision. It's not just working hard, it's working smart. A diligent person evaluates their work, makes adjustments, and seeks to improve. They don't waste energy on activities that don't produce results. Solomon's wisdom gave him the insight to prioritize the right projects and the right partnerships. He didn't try to do everything. He focused on what produced the highest return for his time and resources. That's a lesson many people miss. Business without productivity is simply motion without progress. Diligence is not about doing more, it's about doing what matters most consistently. One of the biggest enemies of diligence is distraction. Distractions can be external, like constant interruptions, or internal, like fear, doubt, or impatience. Solomon's reign was filled with opportunities for distraction, conflicts between nations, internal disputes, shifting alliances, but he maintained his focus on the bigger vision. He built infrastructure, expanded trade, and kept his people productive because he understood that momentum is a product of sustained effort. If you break momentum too often, you have to start over again and again, which delays results and drains energy. Another enemy of diligence is the pursuit of instant gratification. We live in a world that celebrates speed, fast money, quick wins, overnight success stories. But real wealth rarely works that way. The seed takes time to become a tree, and the tree takes time to bear fruit. Diligence is what keeps you tending the soil, watering the seed, and protecting it from pests even when nothing appears to be happening. Solomon knew that consistent effort over time produces exponential results, while inconsistent effort produces frustration and stagnation. Diligence also builds trust. When people see that you are reliable, disciplined, and committed, they are more willing to partner with you, invest in you, and recommend you. Solomon's partnerships with other rulers were built on a track record of follow through. He delivered on his agreements, maintained his commitments, and produced results year after year. This is why resources and opportunities kept flowing toward him. People are drawn to diligence because it represents stability in an unstable world. It's important to understand that diligence is not seasonal, it's a lifestyle. You can't work diligently for a month, slack off for 6 months, and expect the same results. It's the steady drip of effort that fills the bucket. Many people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year of consistent effort. Diligence compounds over time. Just as compound interest multiplies money, consistent disciplined action multiplies results. There's also a mental side to diligence. It's not just about physical effort. It's about maintaining focus in your thinking. If your mind is scattered, your actions will be scattered. Diligence requires you to guard your attention, set priorities, and eliminate distractions. Solomon likely had countless people seeking his attention every day, yet he managed to keep his decision-making sharp and his leadership effective. That level of mental discipline doesn't happen by accident. It's a product of intentionally protecting your focus. Diligence also creates mastery. The more consistently you work at something, the better you get at it. Skills sharpen, instincts improve, and efficiency increases. This is why those who stay committed to a craft or business over the long haul often become the leaders in their field. Solomon didn't become a renowned builder, ruler, and strategist by dabbling. He became exceptional because he stayed in the work long enough to master it. Wealth tends to flow toward those who operate at a level of mastery, and mastery is the fruit of diligence. Another critical aspect of diligence is resilience. Even with focus and commitment, setbacks will come. The diligent person doesn't quit when they encounter difficulty. They adjust and keep moving. Solomon faced challenges like political unrest, resource shortages, and competing nations, but his diligence kept his kingdom thriving. Resilience in the face of setbacks turns short-term struggles into long-term victories. The undisciplined person sees obstacles as reasons to stop. The diligent person sees them as opportunities to adapt. Diligence isn't glamorous. It's not always exciting. It often means doing the same things over and over again, refining them, improving them, and resisting the urge to quit just because it feels monotonous. But in the background, while others are distracted, giving up, or starting over, the diligent person is building something that will stand. Solomon's massive wealth wasn't built on a single brilliant move. It was the accumulation of years of steady, intentional action. That's the power of diligence. Generosity is one of the most counterintuitive wealth principles because it seems to go against common sense. The natural mind says, if I give away what I have, I'll have less. But in the kingdom economy, giving is not subtraction, it's multiplication in disguise. Solomon understood this principle so deeply that his giving was extravagant. He gave to God, he gave to people, and he gave to nations. His generosity was not random. It was intentional, strategic, and rooted in faith that resources flow through open hands, not clenched fists. He knew that if you hold tightly to what you have, you stop the flow. But if you release it, you make room for more to come in. Generosity is not just about money, it's about the spirit in which you operate. Some people give reluctantly, almost resenting the fact that they are parting with something. Others give to be seen, hoping to gain recognition or applause. True generosity gives without manipulation, without hidden motives, and without fear of loss. Solomon's giving reflected his understanding that resources are never the source, they're a tool. The real source is God. And when you honor him with your giving, you demonstrate trust in his ability to replenish you beyond what you gave. The power of generosity is that it multiplies not only your resources, but also your influence. People remember who helped them in a time of need. Nations remembered the gifts and aid Solomon extended. His generosity built bridges, opened doors, and created alliances that brought both peace and prosperity. Many people try to buy influence through manipulation or control, but influence built on generosity is far stronger and longer lasting. When you give, you sow seeds into relationships, and those seeds often grow into opportunities, favor, and open doors that money alone could never buy. Generosity also breaks the spirit of scarcity. Scarcity is the belief that there's not enough to go around, that you must hold on to everything you get because you might not get more. That mindset keeps people trapped in fear and often leads to selfishness. Generosity destroys that fear because every time you give, you prove to yourself that you trust the source more than the supply. Solomon never operated from a place of scarcity. His giving reflected an abundance mindset. He knew that the more he poured out, the more came back, often in ways he couldn't predict. One of the most powerful aspects of generosity is that it sets a standard for those around you. Leaders set the tone for their teams, families, and communities. When a leader is stingy, that attitude trickles down. When a leader is generous, that spirit spreads. Solomon's generosity inspired his people to give, which in turn created a culture of abundance within his kingdom. Everyone benefits when generosity becomes a shared value, because it increases the flow of resources throughout the entire community. Generosity is also a test of the heart. It reveals your relationship with wealth. If you can't give freely, it often means money has too much control over you. Wealth is meant to be a tool, not a master. When you give, you remind yourself that you are the steward, not the owner. Solomon's willingness to give extravagantly showed that his wealth didn't own him. He owned it. This freedom is one of the reasons he could handle large amounts of wealth without being consumed by greed. Another truth about generosity is that it often comes back multiplied, but not always from the same place you gave. You might sow into one person or situation and see the harvest come from a completely different direction. That's why you can't give with the mindset of getting something back from the exact person or place you blessed. Solomon's kingdom received resources from all over the world, gold from one nation, cedar from another, spices from another, and that flow was the result of an open-handed approach to relationships and resources. Generosity also requires wisdom. Giving is powerful, but it should be purposeful. Random, impulsive giving can drain you without producing lasting results. Solomon's giving was strategic. It honored God, strengthened relationships, and invested in projects that multiplied the blessing. Wise generosity ensures that your giving produces fruit that continues to grow. It's not about how much you give. It's about giving in a way that aligns with your purpose and creates lasting impact. Fear is one of the biggest obstacles to generosity. People hold back because they think, what if I need this later? That fear keeps them small. But when you give, you operate in faith, and faith activates provision. Solomon could give freely because he had seen the principle work over and over again. He understood that withholding too much leads to poverty, while scattering generously leads to increase. It's a paradox of the natural mind, but it's a law in the kingdom of wealth. Generosity also shifts your focus from yourself to others. It keeps your vision outward instead of inward. When you're constantly looking for ways to bless others, you naturally start seeing opportunities that self-focused people miss. This outward focus expands your creativity, your problem-solving ability, and your influence. Solomon's generosity didn't just build his wealth, it expanded his ability to see beyond his own needs and into the needs of nations. That perspective allowed him to build projects, systems, and relationships that benefited more than just himself. Lastly, generosity creates legacy. Money you spend on yourself is gone the moment you use it, but money you invest in others continues to work long after you're gone. Solomon's acts of generosity were remembered for generations, and the impact of his giving outlived him. That's one of the greatest returns on generosity. It creates ripples that go far beyond your lifetime. When you live generously, you plant seeds in people, in communities, and in the world that will bear fruit long after you've left the stage. Wisdom is the master key that unlocks every other form of wealth. Without wisdom, riches slip away, opportunities are missed, and influence is wasted. Solomon understood that wisdom was not just intellectual knowledge, it was applied truth. It was the ability to discern what to do, when to do it, how to do it in a way that produced the best outcome. That's why when given the chance to ask God for anything, Solomon didn't request gold, power, or long life. He asked for wisdom, knowing that with it, every other blessing would follow. Wisdom is what multiplies what you have and protects what you gain. Wisdom begins with perspective. Many people make poor decisions because they see only what's directly in front of them. They make choices based on short-term emotions instead of long-term vision. Solomon's wisdom allowed him to see beyond the moment and into the future. He understood cause and effect, sowing and reaping, and the way small decisions ripple out into massive consequences over time. Wisdom trains you to think generationally, to consider how today's actions will affect tomorrow's reality. That's why wise people build legacies, while the unwise often leave behind chaos. True wisdom also comes from humility. You cannot receive wisdom if you think you already know everything. Solomon's request for wisdom was an act of humility. He acknowledged his own limitations and sought guidance from the one who sees the end from the beginning. Many people miss out on wisdom because they want to appear smart instead of actually becoming wise. They'd rather protect their pride than admit they need counsel. Solomon sought counsel constantly, both from God and from trusted advisors, because he knew that wisdom is often hidden in the perspective of others. Another element of wisdom is timing. The wrong action at the wrong time is destructive, but even the right action at the wrong time can fail. Wisdom helps you discern when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to invest and when to hold back. Solomon's ability to time his decisions well is one reason his reign was marked by peace and prosperity. He didn't rush into battles unnecessarily, and he didn't hesitate when opportunity demanded action. This kind of timing only comes from a disciplined mind that listens more than it reacts. Wisdom also knows how to turn knowledge into action. There are people who read every book, attend every seminar, and collect endless information, but their lives never change because they never apply what they've learned. Knowledge fills your mind, wisdom changes your life. Solomon was a builder because he applied what he knew. He used wisdom to design systems, delegate authority, and structure his kingdom so that it could sustain wealth for decades. Without application, even the greatest insight becomes wasted potential. A hallmark of wisdom is the ability to navigate relationships. Many people's lives are shipwrecked not because they lack skill or opportunity, but because they mishandled people. Wisdom teaches you who to align with, who to avoid, and how to handle conflict without destroying connection. Solomon's wisdom and judgment was so profound that people traveled from distant nations just to witness it. He could read motives, weigh evidence, and make decisions that upheld justice while preserving unity. In business, leadership, and life, relationship wisdom is often the difference between success and disaster. Wisdom is also the key to multiplying resources. Anyone can spend money, but it takes wisdom to grow it. It takes wisdom to know which opportunities are worth the risk, which investments will produce lasting returns, and which deals look good on the surface but hide ruin underneath. Solomon's wealth didn't just come from taxes or gifts. It came from wise trade agreements, resource management, and innovation. He knew that one wise decision in the marketplace could create more wealth than years of hard labor. Another dimension of wisdom is knowing how to handle adversity. Life will test you, and without wisdom, tests become traps. Wisdom helps you see beyond the problem into the possibility. It allows you to turn setbacks into setups and failures into lessons. Solomon faced challenges during his reign, diplomatic tensions, leadership disputes, and economic shifts, but his wisdom allowed him to navigate them without losing control of the kingdom. Wisdom doesn't eliminate problems, but it equips you to rise above them. Wisdom also guards against pride. Wealth, success, and influence can make people arrogant, causing them to believe they're invincible. But pride blinds you to danger while wisdom keeps you aware and grounded. Solomon's early humility kept him in alignment with God, which is why his wisdom was so effective. The moment you believe you no longer need wisdom is the moment you start making foolish decisions. That's why those who stay wise often remain successful long after others have burned out. Another truth about wisdom is that it builds peace. Foolishness creates drama, confusion, and conflict. Wisdom creates stability, clarity, and harmony. Solomon's wisdom brought peace to his nation because wise leadership fosters trust. People follow leaders they believe will make good decisions. Families thrive when wisdom guides the home. Businesses grow when wisdom shapes strategy. Communities flourish when wisdom governs decisions. Without wisdom, even the most talented leader will eventually collapse under the weight of poor choices. Wisdom also values counsel over ego. A wise person doesn't isolate themselves. They seek out voices that challenge their thinking. Solomon had access to prophets, elders, and skilled administrators, and he valued their input. He understood that no one sees the whole picture alone. Many people lose everything because they reject counsel, making decisions in isolation and mistaking stubbornness for strength. Wisdom is secure enough to admit, I don't know everything. Help me see what I'm missing. Finally, wisdom is sustained by alignment with God. Solomon's wisdom wasn't merely human insight, it was divine revelation. God's wisdom operates on a higher plane. It sees the unseen, knows the unknown, and understands the hidden patterns that govern life. That's why the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Reverence for God positions you to receive insight that no amount of study or experience can give. It keeps your heart soft, your mind clear, and your spirit open to instruction. When your life is aligned with God's principles, wisdom flows naturally, and with wisdom comes everything else people spend their lives chasing.